This truck behind me is the 2023 Toyota Hilux GR-S, and that is the top trim of the Toyota Hilux that you can currently get here inside the Philippines. But don't think that this truck right here only received cosmetic upgrades, because it's hiding one very important difference that no other Hilux gets. Today I'm going to show you around this truck, and I'm also going to give it a test drive, so stay tuned. But before that, we do have to talk about the exterior bits that they did in fact change, the cosmetic aspects of it. So first of all, you can get this color right here in emotional red, and it looks quite stunning. I'm usually not a big fan of Hiluxes in terms of the looks, but this one, it looks pretty good. Over at the front, you have a very special grille, and it's a very retro looking grille. It reminds you even of those older Land Cruisers out there with Toyota spelled out for you. You also have a front camera right there, automatic LED headlights, as well as LED DRLs, and you even do get a GR-S skid plate in red down below. Over at the side, I also love the look of the Hilux GR-S because it's a great blend between sportiness and ruggedness. Look at your fenders, they're slightly bulged out, and you even have some two-tone going on right there. And your rims are 18 inches. What I don't like about it though is that the offset is a little bit weird, so the Hilux GR-S could use a little bit more spacers to make the tires and wheels flush with your fenders. Right here, you also get some blacked out treatment for your wing mirrors with repeaters on it. And if you're not a big fan of being too flashy, don't worry, only this test unit right here gets the Toyota Gazoo Racing sticker down below. This sun visor right here up top is also an optional extra. What you do get though, as standard, is this GR badge right here, your step board, as well as your blacked out sports bar up top. And your wading depth is still at 700 millimeters. And now remember how I said that this Hilux right here is pretty different from the rest of the Hilux in the lineup? That's because the Hilux GR-S gets monotube shocks all around. This is supposedly going to improve your handling as well as your ride comfort and dampening as you drive this big truck right here. We'll figure out in the drive later on just how this performs. Also, the Hilux GR-S does get these red painted and GR badge calipers for your brakes. And now towards the back of the Hilux GR-S, the most interesting thing that you can find here is that while you do still get a GR badge, it doesn't just say GR unlike the front and on the side. It actually says GR Sport. Anyway, moving on, these lights look pretty good. This tailgate also comes with a third brake light as well as a reverse camera, and it is also assisted. Now once you do open up this bed right here, there is a bed liner included, and while it's not the biggest in its class, it still is big enough. You also get a deck light right there up above just by your sports bar. And now here inside the interior, we check the door first. Sounds about okay. It's not exactly the best out there. Now we start the car up, and you even get a GR emblem push to start button. I love that look. Now right here inside the interior, yes, it is a little bit dated, and it is quite similar to a bog standard Hilux. However, they did throw in a couple of GR badges. So first of all, the push start button, your floor mats are also GR, and these seats. So instead of getting pure leather seats or pure cloth seats, it's a mix of suede and leather with red stitching as well. The steering wheel also gets that GR treatment. You even have a GR badge right here and a red stitching up top just to show you where the top of the steering wheel is. And what I like about it though is that it is both tilt and telescoping, and you even do get these silver paddle shifters, although they are made out of plastic. The instrument cluster is also slightly tweaked. You have some sort of silver molding all over it. It looks pretty good, but yes, just like the rest of the interior, it does look a little bit dated, especially compared to some of its competitors. There is a 4.2-inch screen right there though that does slightly modernize it. Towards the center of everything is an 8-inch touchscreen with a top-down view camera as well as a reverse camera. Unfortunately, that top-down view camera isn't exactly the best. I'll talk about that more later on in the drive. And it even has this weird panel in the middle that kind of covers your view. This screen right here though is pretty responsive, and it it even comes with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, both of which are wired. Now the rest of the cabin right here, yes, it is covered in a lot of hard touch plastic, but if you do knock on them, they do feel durable. Same thing here on the side. And since the Hilux is geared a little bit more towards people who like the rugged appeal, this interior truly isn't bad. You also get a split glove box setup right here. So there's one that goes up with an air vent inside too to cool some drinks, as well as your regular glove box. You also get single zone climate control right here, right beside your 2 high, 4 high, and 4 low switches. And you also get a rear diff locker switch right here, as well as hill descent control. A couple more cubby spaces towards the bottom for your phone, 2 cup holders, as well as a space to put probably your key or some coins. And on the side, you even get 2 more cup holders. Now for the safety features of the Toyota Hilux GR-S, you do get 7 airbags, and at least for the 2023 year model, you do get Toyota Safety Sense, which includes adaptive cruise control, autonomous emergency braking, forward collision warning, as well as rear cross traffic alert and blind spot monitoring system, among others. And now we climb on here inside the back and check the door. Sounds about all right. It's not exactly the best out there. And once you're seated back here, space here is just about adequate. It's pretty much what you expect for a pickup truck. Now, I am only 5'6", and I am seated behind my driving position, and I feel very comfortable. However, if you're a little bit on the tall side, maybe you're gonna struggle a little bit when it comes to legroom. Headroom is pretty good though, no matter how tall you are, because the cab is pretty square. Now, one thing you'll notice back here is that it is lacking rear air vents, but don't worry, the 2023 year model Hilux GR-S finally adds them. So in case you really want to get cool back here, get the 2023 year model. As for your toys back here, well, at least you do have this massive grab handle built in, and you also get 2 map pockets as well as bag hooks on either seats, and you even do get this pretty thick and comfortable center armrest with 2 cup holders. Other storage places right here include under the seats, so you can also lift up these cushions right here 60/40. So now we drive the Toyota Hilux GR-S, and before I tell you about the driving dynamics of this, let's talk about its power plant. So this comes with a 2.8 liter turbocharged diesel engine making 204 horsepower and 500 Newton meters of torque, paired to a 6-speed automatic transmission. And while the power figures isn't the best in class, it's actually the second. The way that the power is delivered right here is, quite frankly, excellent. I've always been disappointed with Toyota's 2.4 liter version of this engine, but this 2.8 simply delivers pretty well. You see, in its competitor with a little bit more horsepower and a 10-speed transmission, there seems to be some sort of a weird shifting that happens, too much shifting that happens, especially when you are overtaking. While it is smooth, you don't really want to have the feeling of having to shift through 2 or 3 gears as you do an overtake, especially on the highway. But with the 6-speed transmission found here inside the Hilux GR-S, you can do overtakes easily with just 1 single gear. Now, also that 500 Newton meters torque, it really kicks even if you put this car into eco mode, normal mode, or God, if you put it into power mode, it really hits you hard and really pushes you back to your seat. 500 Newton meters of torque is just more than enough for a truck of this size. Also, the engine note that this gives you, it's pretty good because noise insulation isn't exactly the best in the Hilux, so you get the pureness of that 2.8 liter rumble. Now, let's go on over to that NVH, which I mentioned, and yeah, noise is one of the things that the Hilux can work on, because when you are driving on the highway or at higher speeds, well, road noise and a little bit of wind noise does enter into the cabin, and especially now that it is raining, this roof right here could use just a tad bit more of noise insulation, but truly it isn't too bad. It doesn't sound like a tin can. Vibrations is also pretty minimal despite this being a diesel engine, although you do feel some of it when you are idling. And now, harshness. This is where the GR-S version of the Hilux truly shows its colors. You see, in a regular Hilux, the main complaint that everyone has with it is that it feels too much like a workhorse pickup truck, wherein the very moment you go on over to slightly worse roads, or if you meet a speed bump, well, then it pretty much just throws you all over the cabin. But with the GR-S version of the Hilux, well, it is still firm. It doesn't really throw you all across the cabin, and most importantly, it doesn't hurt. In a regular Hilux, man, every single bump feels like hell, but for this one, it isn't bad at all. Also, while it still is a little bit not too composed over small, multiple bumps on a really bad road, when you go over a speed bump, especially those high ones, you no longer get jarred too much as you go over it. It's incredibly composed over bumps, and it just gives you that very good rebound as your tire goes over that speed bump. Handling in the Hilux GR-S care also of those monotube shocks is a little bit better compared to a regular Hilux. It's not worlds apart, it's not a game changer, but it gives you a little bit more reassurance as you push this car over bends and corners. However, you do still have to remember that this still is a pretty big and heavy pickup truck, so no racing despite the S in GR-S. This car is not sporty at all. The steering though, it's definitely weighted. It's a little bit on the heavy side, and you will feel the heft of this vehicle since this still uses the older style hydraulic power steering system. But to some people, this steering system might be what they're looking for if they want a little bit more of that traditional analog feel when it comes to steering. Feedback too, well, you don't really feel where the front tires are pointing, but thankfully, if you are going off-road and you want to know where your front tires are pointing, Toyota gave you a handy little monitor right here in your instrument cluster to tell you the direction that your front tires are pointing at. Visibility inside the Hilux, well, it's a pickup truck. It's not great. While you see pretty much everything in front of you, sans a little bit of obstruction from your slightly thick A-pillars. The back, well, you pretty much don't see anything, but Toyota did give you that aforementioned top-down view camera. But the problem with that camera, you see, it's not exactly the best. It's not exactly the most accurate out there. It is a good guide though, and at least you still do have a reverse camera which you can rely on when you are parking this really long truck right here. The seats are also something that I truly do have to commend the Hilux GR-S for, because while Toyota didn't really change the seats in terms of the bolsterings compared to a regular Hilux, by them upholstering the seat in neither leather nor pure cloth and giving you the suede inserts right here, it does tend to hold you in place a little bit better. Also, it doesn't get as hot as leather nor as stain absorbent as cloth, so this suede leather mix is pretty much the perfect balance between the two. And another thing though, in a regular Hilux or a Fortuner, when I drive the car for over an hour or so, for some reason my lower back tends to hurt a little bit, but with this seat right here, or perhaps it's also with the better suspension, I don't seem to get any body aches, and so I am truly enjoying the seats right here. Also, I do want to mention that the brakes in the Hilux GR-S is a lot better compared to a regular Hilux, or Fortuner for that matter. It's not as grabby, and it doesn't really jerk you forward at the immediate step of the pedal. It is a rather refined braking system. I really like it. Finally, we do have to talk about fuel economy, and it is pretty surprising despite the size of this car. Inside the city, doing an average speed of only 17 kilometers per hour, meaning pretty heavy traffic, it returns still 9 kilometers per liter. That truly isn't bad at all. And on the highway, you can return up to 15.1 kilometers per liter. And now for pricing, the Toyota Hilux in this GR-S trim costs 2,057,000 pesos. If you want it in this emotional red color right here, you would have to add 20,000 pesos more for a total of 2,077,000 pesos. And at this price, yes, it is a little bit steep, especially considering that it is not the most comfortable, not the most powerful, nor the most refined pickup truck in its segment. However, for people who are even thinking about owning this truck right here, I don't think that's going to be a big issue, because most people who would be owning this want it probably for its looks, its history of reliability, as well as its capability.